Okay. The different types of environmental impacts caused by fracking are threats to wildlife. So first of all, ponds for flowback, the retention ponds, are major threats to fish, birds, and other animals that happen to drink from them. The chemical and radioactive contaminants in retention ponds are extremely harmful to any wildlife that mistakes it for water. And also, we kind of talked about this yesterday in our plastics, but if it doesn't kill them and then we eat the animal, it travels up the food chain and then we get harmed. The second one is contamination and depletion of local water sources. And this is really concerning. This is a really concerning point because although there are precautions taken by fracking companies, there are still risks. And these risks, we have to question, are they really worth it? So, especially for local surroundings where wells are drilled, water must be extracted in order for the fracking fluid to be created. Usually 8 million gallons of water is used in fracking, and some wells consume much more. It is also concerning that a lot of the fracking sites are created in places where water is already somewhat scarce. So, as an example, in 2014, 97% of the fracking wells in California were located in areas where most of the ground and surface water was already stretched between farming and cities. So these are essential. And then fracking comes in, which, as I've mentioned multiple times already, it's a short-term solution. So we shouldn't really be wasting water on it. If anything, we should be focusing on how to use hydropower energy, which is renewable. So, and also in Texas, that's where a lot of fracking sites are established. Texas reservoirs in 2014, they were reported to be mostly at 25%, which is very low. And some communities were running out of water in their reservoirs. The third point is loss of habitat. And since fracking converts rural and suburban areas into industrial scenes, fracking, like, there's noise pollution, they have to pave roadways, and they have to cut down trees. So not only is this a loss of habitat, wildlife also dies because of fracking. Fracking horizontally, like the horizontal well process, it takes 4 to 5 weeks, and the noise it makes is low and rumbling, and it's pretty irritating for the local community. And I put a video on that on the next slide, but don't go to the next slide yet because one more point. If wells are drilled around faults, even if they're minor faults, they still evoke seismic activity. And unnatural occurrences of seismic activity are dangerous because the more we do fracking, the more fissures that we create underground, and that could be pretty catastrophic in states like California where earthquakes are prone. Yeah, so next slide. And you can play this video, but beware, it's gonna make a really annoying noise. So, or no noise at all. I'll just put that in the chat if you want to check it out sometime. Although I don't suggest it because it's annoying. Helena, are you hearing the noise? Can you attest to the irritation it provokes? Okay. The next slide, I want to talk about risk and reality. So in this photo, you can see a massive fire, which was created by a methane leak in a Pennsylvania fracking site, which was funded by Chevron. This was in 2014, and there was a casualty from one of the fracking contractors. Ian McKee, who was 27 years old at the time, noticed a hissing sound from one of the wells. There were 3 wells, and he noticed a hissing sound from one of them. And soon after, he went to check it out, and then it exploded. And his body was not immediately found, but bones at the site were, and he has been presumed as dead. The smoke emitted from this explosion, you can also imagine how horrible that would be for the local community, and they had to force an evacuation, and one house burned to the ground. So companies for fracking need to be a lot more careful about what they're doing. And this was just one of the examples. I have more examples. I'll put that in the chat. But it can be really devastating. So we need to think about the long-term consequences, and also, are we giving these companies too much freedom, and do they have too much power? Because as you know, the government backs them because it gives them oil trade and power in the fuel trade. So yeah. Next slide. Yeah, so plug for next week's seminar. If you sign up for Friday, we're talking about environmental justice, and I'm going to talk about how fracking and redlining are related. Basically, it's more likely that fracking sites are created near neighborhoods with lower affluence and minority residents, so people of color. And rich neighborhoods, there are not many fracking wells near them. So there's a lot of environmental injustice around fracking. And I would like to talk about that next week. And it's really interesting, so I hope you come. Yeah, that's all for me. Thanks.